Okay. It's December 25th, 1979. We're sitting in Burt and Barbara's dining room having hot dog lunch and trying to get a record of the family tree and reminiscences and all sorts of information about the family. What we have, it started from a project that Shmuel has to do at school on his family tree, and what we were able to do was to get back to Rose and Ria's grandparents, as far back as that generation. Now, what we know is that part of the family came from Kovna Guberna in Lithuania. This was the Block family.
Both, I think.
Both
Satinsky family. I don't know much about that.
That's a name I don't even recognize. The good family?
Satinsky.
Oh, Satinsky. I just said Satinsky. Okay.
Didn't Will be listening to this?
Well, he'll hear it on the tape. Grandfather Block came first and settled in Philadelphia in the section of the city called by the Gentiles Jewtown and by the Jews Jerusalem in the 1880s.
Was it around then, do you think? I was guessing. That's all it is to guess. I keep promising myself that I'm going up to the Jewish Archives office, the museum here, and...
Talking to here.
No, the map. Is that on?
Yes, it's on.
No.
All right, Grandfather Block was a rabbi and a shochet. No, I want this all.
Was he shochet also?
Yes, he was.
Now, Mother seemed to remember the sound of chickens in the backyard, and she thought that he was a shochet just for chickens. Do you remember him being a...
Do you remember the cows in the backyard? No, I don't remember us going to the slaughterhouse. That's what I mean. I don't know. He did do the chickens in the backyard. Went to the slaughterhouse. She doesn't need that.
No,
No,
Lena's father. All right.
but I don't remember Zadie ever going there.
Okay. He was the first rabbi of the synagogue in which he,
I don't know that for sure. Yes, he was, because that's what that Whitman wrote it in his history of the Jewish. That doesn't mean it's correct, though. Why? He got the information, dear. From where?
Do you remember the name of the synagogue?
I think it was,
It's in the article.
yeah. Was it the name? The name, I don't remember.
Okay.
Because there were two synagogues in the area. One was referred to as the big synagogue, and my grandfather's was a smaller one.
What's his name? Brenner's grandfather, who had that.
David Brenner's grandfather, the rabbi, yeah.
Yes.
Yes, Mother.
His grandparents and his father and so on lived right next door to our grandparents.
The two rabbis lived next door to each other.
Michael doesn't want to
Okay, do you remember anything more about him or the circumstances under which he came, when he went, when
Only
he
from the
brought
article that I have, this article printed in the paper. I have to bring it to you, so you can all see it.
Well, don't
Have
eat
Bert and Sarah
the
sit up.
No, I want to finish it. I told you to turn that off.
No.
Turn it off 1 second, let's see whether we're getting it right. How you been?
Did you get it back on again? Okay. All right. So what I want to know is whether you remember anything more specific about when they came, how long it was until he was able to bring over the rest of the family.
I don't really know any assurance about that. It was, as far as I know, it was a few years, that's all I know, before the family, Bubby came with the children. With the young children. And a nightmare of a trip. Because somewhere in France, when they were going to La Havre, Germany. No, I think it was La Havre. And they were supposed to get onto the ship. My mother developed what they thought was smallpox. Apparently later it must have been chickenpox because it was not, didn't have the other symptoms. But this poor grandmother with a load of children, not knowing the language, and probably a shy and reserved person, was put through this dreadful position of having to stay on. She couldn't take, couldn't go off. They wouldn't allow them to board ship. So she had to stay in France until they ascertained that it wasn't smallpox. And I guess whatever it was she had, she got over, and they went on. So she was my mother was very young at the time. She was a really little child. They went to elementary school here. Yes, said she had the same first grade teacher.
Did they ever tell you any stories about Kovna?
I
don't remember anything.
She was preschool when she came.
Yes. I don't know. I said she was very
She was married in what, 1899?
1899, so we only estimate about
And you
that
estimated
time.
she was...
How old did we think she was?
1899. I thought it was
They were married. No. 1898 or 9. I
No,
said.
99. I have the telegram.
We have those-
Congratulations of their wedding.
And she was about 9? 19 or 20?
Yes, she was young. And
She
we
was born
assumed
around
she-
1880.
Well, that's what we
You know what's
thought.
going to happen in 1989? We know.
So then
That's
she came here around
Beginning of the war,
1885.
it's going to cause the end of the world.
Okay. Well, that's again only an estimate. I didn't know that she went to first grade here. I knew she went to school.
Well, she had the same first grade teacher I did.
And
That I remember.
she said that.
All right, tell me,
And
because
Grandpa was about 7 when he came, as I understand. Now, they happened to have come and settled in the same.
Did they come from the same place?
I only know Covenant Cabarrus
That's
for
all I
both
know.
of them, but they may not have known. I don't think they knew one another
Well,
there.
Cabarrus means province.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
So
like
it's a large area.
Yeah, see, it's like a whole county or something. I don't think they knew one another in Europe, but they settled here in the same area.
okay, before we move on to Grandpa's side, let's just go through the rest of Grandmom's side.
Well, about Grandpa's coming here, it seemed the community there needed a rabbi, and so
Jewtown here.
yeah. So he was. I don't know that they didn't bring him from Europe for this, as far as I can gather from this article. But he was invited to come as the rabbi here in Philadelphia. That's why he settled here.
Did he come over alone, or did he bring brothers and sisters?
No,
or
he came
whatever?
alone, as I understand it. With the
Now-
idea of doing what so many of them did at that time, bringing the families over a little later.
The only other family that I know of was Uncle Nathan Block,
Nathan
and I don't know of any other brothers or sisters that Grandpa
Uncle
had.
Nathan Block was
David's
Benjamin
brother.
Block's brother.
Brother.
Okay, and he also came over.
Yeah, but he went
Yeah,
on
but I
later
don't
to
know.
settle in Chicago.
He settled in Chicago.
His family.
He settled in Kankakee.
He had his family in Chicago,
Kankakee,
Okay.
where they
Illinois.
settled.
All right, now.
Which one teacher once told Aunt Min there was no such place as Kankakee, and she said, I have an uncle who lives there. And she just would not believe it.
But there was such a place, Kankakee.
All right, what about Hannah Getz? What do you know about her side of the family?
I know very little. I know that she was extremely young when Grandpa married her, and she was
as far
his.
as I
She was
understand.
14, I think.
Second wife.
She was his second wife. Yes.
Yeah, there was only one other child from the first marriage.
Do you know who the first wife was?
No, but the
She had
child
died,
was.
and he married.
Who was the
my-
child?
Remarried in Europe. So we
Because
don't
they
know who
came
the
with
first
children
child
I
was.
see. Oh, he
from
didn't
my
marry
family.
her here.
No, no,
right,
she
of course,
came with
of course, right. Who was who was the child of the first marriage?
Yeah, Annie London.
I never remember.
You never
Okay.
heard us talk about Shmuel London?
Small London.
No.
All right.
Okay. All right. Now the children of the second marriage were whom?
And Sophie, Mom, Aunt Eva. This is the order of the ages. Aunt Eva, and I think it was Uncle Abe, Uncle Harry.
Uncle Abe was older than Annie.
No.
In any case,
Anyway,
that's about
anyway, Uncle Harry, Aunt Minnie,
Uncle Herman.
yeah, Uncle Herman, Aunt Minnie, Aunt Jenny, Aunt Dinah, and Uncle Charlie.
And Jenny
Or
was older than Minnie.
listen.
Which one was the twin?
Aunt Minnie was one of a twin.
One of a
but that
twin, but the
died,
first didn't survive the first year, I don't think.
No.
died very young.
No, I don't think so.
I think so.
Jacob. No, I think he
Oh,
was.
Jacob wasn't her twin. He was I don't think he
Who
was.
was?
We never knew her twin because I think the
Well,
twin
we didn't
died
know
at an
Jacob
early
either.
age. No, but he was at least here, and I think was
They were born
a man when he.
Yes, that's right.
But I don't
in
think he
his
was the
late
twin of
teens.
Aunt Minnie's.
Well, then where does he come in the family?
I don't remember that because he
Well-
died when we were very young.
But you know about the rest. No, I think he was the twin, though.
So there were how many altogether that survived?
There
I
were
would like
11
not
children.
11. 11 that survived, not including this.
There were 11. 1, 2,
Do you know how many didn't
4,
survive?
5, 6, 7.
Well, we know Jacob died when we were young. Of course, others have since died, but that's more recent.
10. No, well, that's all the fact.
Survived into adulthood. Okay, and the children of any one of those children had it.
10 children. And the 11th, as I know, then was Jacob, but I thought he was the twin. I don't know yet.
Okay, who are the children of those children?
Oh,
Who
wow.
No. I don't want all the names. I just want to know whether we relate to any of them. Were any of them in our growing up?
Well, Rosalie and Norman Frank, who were Aunt Eva's
Aunt
children.
Eva's children.
That's the sort of thing.
Herbie Frank and Irene and Minnie's children.
Miriam, Harry, Jack, and Bill
Phillips.
Phillips.
They're Aunt Sophie's children. Pearl You don't know the block fellas. Pearl, Robert,
Was Abe and
Jack,
Jack were
they were Uncle
Abe's
Abe's
children.
Uncle Harry's, I don't know, because by the time they were
Yeah,
in
they
New
may
York
have
and we
moved to
lost
New York.
contact. He had 2 children, Dorothy and Bertie, and Dinah, Shirley, and Bernie are Dinah's children.
Mhm.
Uncle Charlie had no children. And
Jenny
children
had
was
Simon and
and I
Jenny.
met Benny in the supermarket yesterday when I was taking
Oh,
him.
really?
I have been wanting to call
How
her.
are they?
I've had a lot of feeling about it. and
Yeah,
I
how
just
are
haven't
they?
gotten it to her. She said everything was okay.
That's good.
Everything was okay.
They're 2 nice people.
Okay, so that takes care of, okay, those were the children of Rabbi Benjamin Block and Hannah. Do we know anything more about Hannah's family?
It's not Hannah, it was Anna. It was
Oh,
Hannah. Hannah.
Hannah, well,
Okay,
That's
she
not
called
Hannah.
herself Anna in English, though.
Yeah.
no, she didn't.
Yes, it was Anna Block.
But I
Whenever.
called her in English. I don't know
That's
what
right. It
It's
was,
Hannah.
well, it was Bobby.
Hannah is not Anna. It's Hannah. What's Hannah then?
Who cares?
I don't know, but I think Hannah is another name.
All right,
Go on.
what else, do we know anything else about her side of the family?
Yes, she
about
had
her.
relatives who settled in
A lot of them in Allentown.
The Getzes, but I really don't know. Rosalie
Who was it?
Coleman would know them, but I don't know.
Yes,
them.
because Rosalie married one of the
Coleman's.
Colemans and Getzes are all
Allentown,
intertwined.
you know, but she would have known more about them.
And they are a large part, a
A well-known family.
well-known family in Allentown.
All right, what can you remember about Hannah and Benjamin's personalities, what they were like, any little stories surrounding them?
Well,
Just
Zadie
that I
was the
adored them.
sweetest.
Yeah, he was
Zadie
so
was
sweet.
the sweetest personality you could
And
ever,
Bubby was too.
hope to meet. And everybody had a great deal of regard for him. Burton, you just asked, well, she's told you, Esther Green, who stems from that neighborhood and who is around here, and they know him very well.
Yes,
from
I
the,
met somebody who was a little
congregation.
boy then too.
And she always talks about Zadie and what regard her father had for him.
Yes, this person that I met many years later said he remembered my grandfather so well. They were playing roughly on the street very often when they were little kids, and as soon as he walked down the street, they behaved. They just thought he was so.
Yes, for him, yeah. Yes, he was much loved by the whole community. Everybody had a great deal of regard for him.
How about
I
little-
remember something very cute about her. We used to have to listen to the Megillah twice if we went to shul, because he would read the Megillah in shul with the congregation, and when he came home, do you remember that?
In his own
We would
house.
sit around his dining room table. It was one of those round tables. And he would read the Megillah again, and we would, those little kids, almost die with his endless story. And we would start a talk maybe, and he would say, Zosein Shah. Remember that? I remember it. In a sweet way. And we would have to sit there while he reread the Megillah. Believe me, it was a real Megillah when people refer to it. I always think of that.
All right, were there any other stories about them that you remember?
Not really, you know. They
No.
talk about
Just as coming and going. And
the area was totally Jewish. And
let
they
me
used
paint
to-
a little of that for you.
It
was
just-
almost-
Hold on half a minute.
A duplication of the shtetl in Europe. It was a very small community. Everybody knew everyone. There were nicknames for people. I mean, if a man was a tailor, then he had a kind of nickname relating to his trade and that sort of thing. You knew everybody's, I imagine the elders did know everybody's business. It was this. Nobody would ever suffer without the whole community lending a hand. It was this intimate shtetl type living. And when I see the pictures that Chagall paints, they're not so foreign to me at all, even though I was born here. They have a great meaning to me.
That's about remembrance, yes.
Very interesting area.
Okay.
But they do recall, too, how on Sukkot, on Simchas Torah, they used to take the Torahs out and march down and dance down the street with the Torahs like they did in the shtetls in Europe. I don't remember that.
I don't either. I've only heard that, but I do not remember
They
it.
do talk
And I don't know why that wouldn't have impressed me. Should have a
I
thing
don't
like
know.
that.
I don't know. I don't remember they were doing these. I have one faint recollection of this.
I don't even have that. But I do have a recollection of a Simchas Torah on 33rd Street when we had a red-haired, red-bearded
Oh,
rabbi
yeah.
staying with us who was a real, I guess he was one of the Hasidim. He was that type.
And the men who stayed
They
with
would
us
drink in
were-
shul, and then they came back to our house, and he was dancing, and just, it was all one of this
Ecstatic.
sort of
That
ecstatic
was
kind of-
when the chief rabbi of Poland
No, that was not the same thing.
came, and they were there at Sukkot, and the whole week was festive around our place because everybody from the city, and he was a famous man, he had been in the
He had
Polish
been in the-
Parliament,
yeah.
and he was here with his two sons-in-laws who were attending on him like almost like a royalty.
And Aunt Min and I had to give up our bedroom as usual.
Sure. Sorrow or so. And Dan, you hear that? You give up your bedroom when somebody special comes. Well, it's me. And you do it, but you always do it with grace.
I'm not sure how much grace I put into
Somebody
mine.
was great. Took your room once in a while.
Well, maybe if you had to do it every few weeks when some other guy came, you wouldn't enjoy it.
Herb was the one who always got put out of his room.
If it was one man,
There's always somebody.
he had a small bedroom with one little bed in it,
The
and
rest
it
of
was
us
one
were in the
man.
room, and it was the girl.
And since we being the elder of the girls, we had the best room, the front room, where all the dust from the tennis courts blew in.
But it was the biggest room and the nicest view, and that's the one.
And it had twin beds, so that if there were two, they were on the second floor. We were all on the third floor.
They were on the second floor,
Okay.
which was even a larger room.
No.
Yes, it was, because there were the 3 bedrooms and bathroom on the second floor, and there were the nurse room, and there were 4 on the third floor with the bathroom.
You mean our bedroom was larger than mine?
No,
Oh,
no,
no.
no,
I thought
said-
that's what
no,
you
no,
meant.
no.
Oh, no.
All right, we're ready to move to Grandpa Max's side of the family, Isaac Satinsky and Dora Lubovsky. Where do you want to start?
Well, we don't remember Zadie Satinsky at all. He died in 1903. He died before any of us were born. But Bubby was a very sweet soul. And
Oh, she
bright
was a
as
very
red.
interesting woman,
Yes, she
too.
was.
Okay, but I remember the stories about her, so
Bright as
please
a red.
tell them.
Yeah.
Please tell them.
Oh, there are many stories about her. She was rather an interesting person. She lived to be in her 80s somewhere. I didn't know exactly because they never knew birth dates at that time. She had all of her faculties. In fact, she was rather superstitious, and some of the things that she would do to us, for instance, when there was any kind of epidemic, and they were always fearful of epidemics, especially things like polio, which were so dreadful in their effects. She would tie a piece of, I remember, camphor. But sometimes people said garlic, but I remember camphor, which has a very strong smell, a whole chunk of camphor on a string, and that was supposed to keep away the germs, the disease. Of course, it was highly superstitious. What it was keeping away was the evil spirits.
What it was really
Actually.
keeping away was people. So you weren't exposed to catching it.
Well, that is, I mean, there is a great deal of wisdom in the things that were done throughout the Jewish history without science information.
That's on the Middle Ages, yeah, that is,
Folk practices.
yeah. But
Yes, but,
another thing that Bubby was superstitious about, she saw very well, but she was so afraid of Inhera, people would say, you
know
don't
what an
anybody
Inhera
wears
is?
glasses?
Inhera.
She bought a pair of glasses in the 5 and
She
10
sent
just
Lena
wear
to the
them.
5 and 10 to get her a pair of glasses, so if anybody saw her without glasses, they wouldn't give her an Inhera, and they should all think she needed glasses, and she didn't.
She didn't need glasses.
She was in her 80s. She had good hearing.
Yes.
She was a very generous person with us. She adored her grandchildren. And if we'd come to visit, for instance, my father my father and uncles were very good to her and very generous.
And to her daughter, they had one sister.
They had one sister, and she lived. My grandmother lived with the sister, with their sister. And they were very generous with her, so they would always bring her things like fruit. When we came, she would give us the fruit. It was that kind of thing. She didn't really eat it. She would give it to us because she had nothing else to give her.
She would give Lena's family some, but she would always hold the major part of it because we
For the
used to go
visiting
over almost every
grandchildren.
Saturday.
Yeah, well, that was part of our Saturday
That was
when
our
we were
Saturday
young.
after dinner.
We did. We
walked over
paid
there.
our respects to her. That's interesting. We never stopped to think about that, but it was great
I
fun.
always went over there on Saturday afternoon. This was not in the original old neighborhood. This was in Strawberry Mansion.
Yeah, this was later. We were
They had gone
teenagers and
from
so
there,
on.
and we lived there by that time up about 6 squares away, 6 blocks. So
She had a sense of humor,
she
too.
had a wonderful sense of humor.
Yeah.
Joey used to love to go over and spend time talking to her. But she didn't speak English much.
Enough to
But-
communicate with us, though, because we
But
didn't
only
speak
on,
Yiddish.
yeah, but when it came to the stories and different things she would tell, that would be in Jewish, more or less. Of getting information from her about Europe or so. And Joey may, but I don't know where Joey is these days.
Joe Satinsky? All right, we'll come back to that.
Well, that doesn't have to be on the tape.
No, that shouldn't be
Yeah.
over.
Okay, I remember you're telling me, I think it was Dora, who was, you didn't...
Dora Kramer.
No.
Bobby?
Yes. You didn't want to use
Dora
the word
Kramer.
strange, but I think it was she who you used to speak about as sitting on the step.
No,
And
no,
you're-
that was my maternal grandmother.
Oh,
Yes, she was,
Bubby's block.
yes, as she neared her
That was Bubby's
latest
block.
years.
Yes,
So that
she
that was
failing.
that
She
was
was
Hannah.
failing, Hannah.
Oh, okay. So let's
She
go back
was
to Hannah.
failing
I remember that story.
mentally. But there was something wonderful about it. I mean, it wasn't any kind of violence or anything like that. She would sort of mumble to herself
Or
and
call
talk to
out
herself.
to people, and no one was actually
And the whole,
there.
because it was a Stetzel-like life, nobody paid attention to it, and
Nobody-
everybody knew her, and
Yeah,
everybody was
nobody
fond
ever-
of her, you see. So that it was just something. So she would sit on the step. We lived across the street. And when we would go out, we would always go over to her. And I adored her because I was never afraid of her. You would
No,
think maybe
nobody was.
this unusual behavior would make me afraid of her, but it didn't. She had such gentleness and sweetness, and she loved the children. Always gave us a cookie or
She was a
whatever it
wonderful
was she
baker.
baked. She was a
She
wonderful,
was a wonderful baker.
baker. Yes. And I always think of that because I often wonder why wasn't I afraid of her when she didn't behave the way everybody else
Yeah,
did.
and after
And I
Sadie-
never was.
After Sadie died, and after we had moved from the neighborhood, she still lived down there. I used to visit her when I would visit Nez, and we used to walk down there on Sunday afternoons. And she lived there, and after Aunt Jenny married, she lived there alone.
Yes, she did.
But no one was afraid to have her, I mean my mother or her other children, let her live there alone, because nobody would have thought about harming her.
Okay, I got that mixed up. I thought that was Dora. Okay. Do you remember anything more about Isaac? Oh, Isaac, right. No, Dora.
Well, we told you some stories about her and how much we loved her. All our grandparents adored us, and we really returned it.
You're so adorable. What, let's go through now the children of Dora and Isaac.
They were Uncle Meyer, Uncle Benny, or was Aunt Yeti next? Aunt Yeti, who was Lena's mother,
It was Uncle Benny, then I think, and then Pop.
and Pop, and then Dave.
Dave was the baby. There were only four of them?
Four men
Four
and
men and
one
one
girl.
Brothers and sisters.
Okay, and their children? Who we would recognize.
All right, you know all of Uncle
Dave's
Benny's.
children. You know all of Uncle Benny's. Maybe they don't know all. Uncle Benny's is Mickey's family, Morris,
Saul, Irv,
Irv, Alex, Phil,
Okay.
B.
and B. That's Uncle
We're Max's children.
And that was Uncle Benny
That was
married
Uncle-
to Aunt Minnie.
Aunt Minnie Werner.
Okay.
And Uncle Dave's children, you know, Rosie, Helen, Irv, Joe, Reds, and Victor. You know, that's that.
Okay.
And yet his family were Lena and Itzy and
Phil.
Jules, Yiddy, the rabbi, and Phil, and Albert. That's not the order.
Phil
of
and
the-
Albert, I don't even
Well,
know.
no, you wouldn't know.
No. Phil was dead. Yes,
Phil was the
he
one.
lived in
Phil was
Camden.
the one who moved to Camden.
Yeah,
He was.
I never heard Albert.
He was a
I don't know if he's.
podiatrist.
Phil was.
Phil was a
Phil was a
podiatrist.
podiatrist.
Yudi, or Jules, is the rabbi. He's living in New York State.
Have no children.
He is married, but he has no children. Phil has a son and daughter, and had before he died, and there are some
And
grandchildren.
Lena has the one son.
Lena has.
That's Phil's daughter one time.
She's
was
an
over at our
attorney.
house.
She was cute or something.
She was cute.
Yeah, she was over at our house one time. We brought her
She's divorced.
Yes.
over.
Maybe she came over when she was over at Lena's or something. Yeah. She's an attorney.
Okay, and just for the record, go through your own family. Max's and Molly's children.
Well, then there was Myers, and that's a family you
That
don't really know.
very well.
And more than half of them, I think, are already dead.
Oh, yes, sure.
Go through.
Are there only two survivors? Three.
No,
Minnie, Rose, and Eddie.
Eddie.
That's all.
Oh, that's the other Rose.
That's
Yes,
the other
the other
Rose
Rose
Evans. And Minnie Cohn.
Write that up with it.
And
And
Edna.
Eddie Emanuel.
Eddie
They changed their name. He and his brother Jay changed their name to Emanuel instead of Satinsky.
Yeah, well, Jay did that a long time ago. He was first. And then there was Dave.
And there was Dave and Sam and
Morris.
Morris.
These were all.
These were all Uncle
He
Myers.
had 7 children. Aunt Minnie and Uncle Benny had 6. We were 5. And Uncle Dave had 6. That is
And
surviving
he had
children.
7.
She had 7, yeah. No,
Uncle
Uncle Maya had 7. She had 6. We were 5.
Aunt Minnie had 7. Saul, Morris, Irv,
Irv,
Bea, Mickey, Alex.
Alex,
and
Phil.
Phil.
Yeah, Phil. Then did Uncle Maya have 8?
I think so. They were a larger family for one.
Just to wind up this side, just let's go through, as I said, for the record, Max and Molly's children in order, even the ones who didn't survive.
Who didn't survive? Well, the first one was her daughter Esther,
Who was born when?
before Aunt May.
She was the firstborn, and she died as an infant from pneumonia, I think. We're not too sure about these diagnoses, because I don't know how much they knew of medicine of that type at that time.
It wasn't unusual for children to
Yeah,
die
there were
in
probably,
infancy.
yes, there were probably
She
lots
died
of...
before Aunt Min was born?
Yes, Aunt Min never knew her either. Then came Aunt Min, then came this brother Isidore, who died at the age of 12. Then I came,
How far after is it?
None of us are far apart. I know.
there's 3.5 years difference between Aunt Min and me, and he was between the two of us. So, you know,
And how much?
somewhere in there.
Then after you?
Came Rhea 2 years, 23 months.
22 months difference?
23.
Yeah,
23 months.
And then Aunt Sylvia, a 4 years difference between us.
And then Uncle
and then Uncle
Yang.
Yang, who was 6 years younger than Sylv.
Okay.
Sister, not a child.
No, a sister. Well, we were talking about Jade's family. We mentioned Uncle,
Uncle Nathan.
Nathan Frank. Uncle Nathan.
How about Ida from Marshalltown?
Yeah, that's right.
I love it's Uncle Nathan Block. Can you imagine if I called you Anthony?
Well,
We had two Uncle Nathans, that's
He was
why.
a great uncle to us.
And we had another Uncle
We had
Nathan,
another
who
uncle.
was married to our Aunt Minnie.
And this is only for identification insofar as this is concerned.
Okay.
Now, when we talked about Uncle Nathan, we usually meant Nathan Frank, who lived in this city and was
And whom we
married
knew
to my aunt.
well.
When we talked about Uncle Nathan Block, he was a great uncle whom we rarely had anything to do with.
Well, when he came, he always stayed at our house.
Yes,
Everybody
but
stayed
that
at our
was when
house.
we
But
were
I do
very young.
remember him.
I remember him too. He was a nice
I
looking
remember him.
man.
Yes, he was a nice looking man.
Also short, like Zadie, but
And he was portlyish, as I
Later.
remember him. And we knew his
so
wife.
in referring to him, it was always Uncle Nathan Block to the stint.
All right, what I'm interested in now is not going on to our generation, but going through some of the stories and some of the reminiscences of your growing up years. And Grandpapa and the whole family relationship. And
Oh,
we were
that.
talking about Uncle Dave. When
You
Uncle
know
Dave
what
died.
I'm
Yes, I
talking
know. When we went on tape, we know that. We know some of them.
Well, Grandpapa and Uncle Dave were very
Wait,
close.
even before you get to that,
Yeah.
Mother was telling us some stories about Grandpa courting Grandma. And that, I'd like to get that.
Remember some of the stories he used
Yes,
to tell
I
to
do.
tease her, really, more than anything.
Yeah. He really was very much in love with his grandmom, and he objected very much when she went out with anybody else. And they used to mention some people that she went, some other fellow that she went with. I don't remember his name, but he used to write her little love notes on the order blank from the butcher store. On the back of it, and I had the whole batch of them.
Do you
that
really?
Mom
I
kept.
didn't know
Oh,
that.
yes, you didn't
Do
know.
you remember when we went
Little
to
brown, they're
Delaware?
written in
When we went through
Oh, they're
the
all in
book?
Yiddish.
They're in Yiddish.
That's right.
They're in Yiddish, and I never felt that I wanted to ask anybody to read it because I thought it was an intrusion.
You're right.
But
Anybody want some coffee?
Half an hour.
Not too long ago, I'll have some. But it doesn't have to be now. Not too long ago, I did take some of them out. Arthur was over. They were visiting me after I had moved to
Arthur
my
Cohn.
apartment. And he reads Jewish. And I opened a few of them. They were very brief little notes. But he used to write to her practically every day.
And they lived right around the corner.
And Grandmom kept these in a small little plush pocketbook.
Oh, yes.
Pocketbooks that were on a chain that hooked
brown.
on their belt. I have it. She
It had a
kept it
frame
all
of
the time.
gold and a gold chain, and the women used to attach it to
And
their
it had a
belt.
little hook, and they
It was
went on
velvet.
their belt. That was their
It was
purse.
about this big.
Yeah. And she kept all the plushes practically worn in many spots on this thing. But she had kept that all the time. And with all the things, in the house, I always kept that. And we had the telegrams that they received of congratulations on their wedding.
She also kept a blonde curl, and it was blonde because I remember seeing it, from my brother Itzy, which she kept in a
in that
red,
red-
that was a very valuable bowl, and I don't know, it looked like Lalique.
No, I don't.
That kind of raised, yes it was.
It had
Oh, I don't mean that it was Lalique, but it was that
But
kind of
the
thing.
raised coloring
design.
had come off on one side of the curl. It was in there all those years. This was the curl of Itzy's, our brother's.
And it was light hair.
He was strawberry blonde.
Yes.
He was light.
But you,
Then Grandpop used to buy, you kids have probably never seen, there were tiny little white sugar candies that were shaped like hearts. And one would say, I love you, and one would say, I love you. Well, Grandpop used to buy those and send them to
And
Grandpop.
he used to bring fruit to her when he picked her up where she worked that time. He worked in a place that made artificial flowers for hats or something, and
Yeah.
he used to go to pick her up, and he'd always bring some little thing to her. And she was very shy and was so embarrassed with all this.
should we be surprised that she was working? Was that unusual?
No.
Oh, no.
They had to. They were a tremendous family. How much did a rabbi make in a little shtetl like that? There was no
I
organized...
didn't know that the women, that the girls.
Oh, yes, indeed, they had to.
She worked in this little place where they made artificial flowers. And Jenny was at home, apparently. She stayed home to help.
Yes, she was the one who helped at home.
home.
Dinah worked?
Dinah worked.
Dinah worked at Uncle Harry's. She
Yes,
worked for
she
her
worked. He
brother.
had a millinery shop, and she worked for him. And I don't know about Aunt Minnie and Aunt Eva. I really don't. What they did.
Okay, we know that Grandpa, we know that Grandpa came over, and
Oh, desserts.
right, Mother, you're recorded now forever.
Yeah. That's all right. So they have to know that too.
Okay, we know that Grandpa and
This hot?
and Uncle Dave.
Yes, it's hot.
I can feel it in this cup.
Yeah, this is on tape, you know.
We know
It's
that.
steaming. What do you think?
Be quiet. We know that Grandpa and Uncle Dave decided to become kosher butchers. Do you know anything?
They didn't decide. I
That
said
was
their
their grandfather's
father.
business, and
Their
they worked
father
with
was
him in
a
the shop.
butcher, and
Oh,
they
so they just went right
joined
into
They
the
worked.
business.
Yeah, they worked in the butcher shop.
All right,
And when
Mother.
he died, they took it over and ran it.
Okay, Mother also said that they used to make bologna.
They did. That factory of that was in back of our house.
And this was the house on what street?
Tulip Street,
We lived- that's where
2851
we lived.
Tulip.
Okay, that's where, is that the first house that you lived in?
That's the one I was born in.
That's where
We
you
were
were
all
born.
born there except Jenny.
Okay, and you lived there until you were how old?
I was
I was 8.
not quite 11. I was still 10 when we left there. I was 11 by the time we came
moved
back.
in 1917.
We went to
so
the
I
country
was
for that
going on
summer.
9.
And while we were away, my father moved from Tulip Street to Oxford Street,
That
32nd
was
and
the
Oxford,
year after our brother died.
3217.
And it was a terrible blow. Terrible. He was the one son at the time, and it was before his bar mitzvah. And
Did
And
I
he
see
died.
some,
Mother thought that he possibly died of rheumatic
Yeah.
fever.
that's what Aunt Anne thinks. I really didn't know.
We're only guessing, we don't really know.
And that was where you met, when
Yeah,
you moved to
sugar
Oxford
dancing?
Street, that's when you
Yes.
met Daddy. right?
Yes, right behind us was a little street called Guest Street. It was about the width, no, the little street was Guest Street. The backs of our houses, his and mine.
I won't figure it out, but you gave it away. We've been listening this whole time for you to give away something.
Well, this would be the
You said
time.
we moved in 1917 and I was almost 11.
Now that's it.
It's done. My secret is out.
Yeah, the harm is done.
I don't want you to know.
We're still too young to know, honey.
So,
Just listen to
what
the
was I
tape.
telling you?
When you met Daddy.
So the back of our house was on this guest street, and the back of Daddy's house, and they lived on Turner Street, was exactly opposite the back of our house.
Street having a name even where our back.
Yeah, it was called Guest Street. It was a little tiny street where every trash and garbage were
Yeah,
put
but
out.
I don't remember that it had a name.
I want the artificial cream or whatever.
So,
So, he was a friend of Cousin Irv's. Cousin Irv lived on Turner Street across the street from him.
they already lived there.
And they were friends with a group of others. And when I moved there, I met Daddy that way. And we were all one gang. Francis was in it, you know, we were all one gang when it was girls and boys playing games. And it was, and the boys had their own fun.
What is this, Cherry? Is this Cherry?
Okay, all right, so now back to Grandpa. So you were still on Tulip Street
When?
when they were in the butcher shop and had the bologna factory in the back.
Now, they had decided
They
then to
already
go
gave up.
to give up the butcher shop and to go into the manufacturing of woolens.
And how old were you about this?
I don't remember
We
that.
still lived on
But we still lived on
Tulip.
Tulip Street, so I was under 10. They went into partnership with a man who was a French Catholic, a devout Catholic, but who knew all the technicalities
He knew the business.
of manufacturing the wool. So that Uncle Dave and Dad and my father were partners with this French Catholic man. And they started in this Frankfurt woolen mill business, which grew and into which the boys of Uncle Benny's family plus our family went in.
I'd like to tell that story.
Go ahead.
And what's the matter with Uncle Meyer's family? It's Morris.
Yes,
MK.
that's right. Morris was given a job there too for selling. Where's that milk that you went out to refill? Here.
It's in the cow.
That's gonna sound really funny.
Don't think that's so funny. When we lived in Jerusalem, I always called it that. I always referred to it that way. On Pesach time, we were not too far from where somebody had a farm with cows yet. And they used to go with a bucket to get milk directly.
Oh, wait a
from the
minute.
cow for ladies.
First they saw, I think it was 80 who did it, that those cows were fed as they're supposed to
Oh,
be
I'm
fed
sure, yeah.
for a certain period before Pesach. And then we had Pesach milk before it was known to most other people because we had it that way.
But it wasn't pasteurized.
Well, Mom, if I want to bring it up, I sure can do it easy with you.
I'd like some lemon pie.
Come, have it. Remember she said that sugar will settle with them.
Anybody cutting?
All right,
The knife.
you told us that Grandpa and Uncle Dave didn't know anything about the textile aspect of it, and so they ran the business.
They ran the business then.
They put
They
up the
took care, they put up the capital because I don't think
Oh, they probably got involved with selling.
Charlie Marion.
Yeah, they did it for a while.
And that
And they ran the office and the selling end.
and Uncle Dave died when he was 39.
That's what Irv told me.
He wasn't a service there.
Here's my plate.
But maybe we should just get dessert set. All right, Aunt Rita.
No, I don't think
No one will be here, okay.
Make you feel better?
Grandpa and Uncle Dave had a very close association with this Mr. Marion, Charlie Marion, that worked with them. He used to visit, I remember on Pesach time, it was Easter, he always used to send a box of chocolate coconut eggs. And we never could have them. We had a shed, and it used to be put on the top of something way out of the way in the shed until after Pesach.
I don't remember that at all.
During the war, when they used to run the plant on Shabbos, right? They would sell the plant to him
That's right. They did do something.
Yes.
and then buy it back.
Because their place was one of the few that was closed on Saturday.
And they were, during the war, you see, they were all working extra time. And
They had to.
time.
They had to fill orders for the government. They were doing government work.
Government work.
What were they making for the government?
cloth,
They were made of
soldiers'
cloth.
material for uniforms.
You mean this French Catholic partner allowed them to keep the plant shut on Saturday?
Oh, I don't think he cared as long as he was part of the business, so they
worked 5 days
They worked
a week.
5 days
They
a
didn't work
week.
6 days.
Okay. Now, when Uncle Dave died, he left 6 small children.
The eldest was 12. The Urban Bar Mitzvah
No,
after.
afterwards. They died before, both died before he was born.
Right, and,
Well, wait,
I mean,
his mother, Aunt Annie, died first.
right.
And then his father died. All right, so there were
About
6.
11 months later, they died within a year of one.
I thought it was longer than that, but it doesn't matter. It was very close together, and there were these orphans.
And the youngest was just past 2. Uncle Yang was past 1, and Reggie was past 2.
And our brother Yang was still in his infant years. He was about a year old. He was younger than
He was
Red.
just past a year. And at that time, we had moved from Oxford Street, and we were living on 33rd, and Uncle Benny and his family were right next door.
They were there.
Yeah, they were there first, yeah. We moved,
I thought we moved there after the children were left.
No, we had no room on Oxford Street for the children.
No, but I thought that's when we moved.
That's why you moved.
No, that wasn't why we moved.
Wasn't
Uncle Dave had remarried, if you remember.
Oh, well, that was the short
Well,
period.
That was a short period,
Well-
but that's when they were trying to make some arrangement to take care of the children. Then when Uncle Dave died, we were already living up on 33rd Street. I don't
I
know
didn't know
exactly
that.
how long afterward.
Well, it was very soon because all this happened within a short time.
Yeah, but I don't know exactly how long we were living on 33rd Street because we did have a tenant up in the attic, if you remember the Bodners.
That's right, we did.
So that when we moved there was a 3-story house.
It wasn't just
and
the
then-
attic, it was part of
No,
the third
they had
floor.
the
in
third
attic.
floor and the 2 rooms in the attic. We only had the back room on the 3rd floor.
Yes, because
And they
Min and I
had the
had
other
that.
rooms, because the house was so big, we didn't need all
It
of
was a
that.
14-room house, counting the 2
The
attics.
2 in the attic.
So these tenants had to leave?
Yes,
Then they-
because we needed the
they
whole
gave
house
them
then. There were
notice to leave.
3 children coming.
And Irv and Helen and Rose came to live with us, and the other 3.
We had
lived
more
with us.
girls in the family, so Rosie and Helen were with us, and then we took the oldest boy, because Yang was only an
He was a
infant.
baby.
And Aunt Minnie had more boys, and she took the 3
And
boys.
Reggie was just 2.5. And
Now, this is the kind of thing that just doesn't even exist today. I don't hear any such stories today. She died not long afterwards. She, I saw her. They made a settlement for her. She was,
and then they,
What did Uncle Dave die, do you know?
we don't
he had a
know.
kidney condition.
Was it? I don't think we're sure of what any of them died
I
of
think
in
he had a
the
kidney
earlier
condition
years.
of some kind. And for a while prior to that, he had not been well, and they used to go down to Florida.
Yeah, they went to Florida in the winters because he and my father used to
They
ride
had
to each other.
another child who died in the flu period, Jules. He was a redhead like Reggie.
And they don't even know where he was buried because
They did
their
know
grandfather,
They did find him.
I didn't think so,
Yes, they know now.
their grandfather took care of the burial at that time. And burials were like common, it was more common than the milkman going down the street.
I mean, they had to bury people en masse,
During the
really,
flu.
during the flu, because you
They couldn't even get coffins
No.
fast enough. It was a dreadful,
How
dreadful.
old were you during that? What was
Epidemic.
it, the flu?
We were all sick.
I was under
1918.
1918. 1918 was the dreadful year anyway.
1918.
It was a dreadful
We
thing.
were still at
Even
Oxford.
as young as I was, I remember how dreadful. I remember, too, that we were all sick with the flu except my father.
And
Every
then
one of us was in bed, and the flu was a really
Yeah,
debilitating
he-
disease.
He had it.
We were all of us, and it's a very, very sick disease. You really feel ill. And my father was taking care of all of
You
us.
couldn't get nurses.
Couldn't get anybody to
There
help.
were 2...
There was a minister who had 2 daughters, a real minister, the kind who was really teaching and living what he taught. And his 2 daughters came to help. Maybe they went to other
They went
places
to other
too.
2, I believe, but they used to come.
They used to come and help take care of us and go home. They didn't stay over. They went home. After it was all over and we all survived, thank goodness, in our household, my father wanted to pay them. He felt so indebted to them. They wouldn't take any money. He did give them bolts, really a lot of material because they used to make things of their own. And he gave them lots of different kinds of woolens to make skirts, dresses, whatever they wanted to, or coats. That's the only way they would accept anything from him. but they wouldn't
Very nice.
allow him to pay for their services.
Aunt Minnie used to send up chicken soup and then put it on the doorstep. Nobody would dare, you know, you
didn't go into
in because
houses
it
that
was
had
so
this
highly
illness.
contagious. It was a dreadful.
They didn't get sick or anything?
I don't know what did down there, Rose, but
I
she
don't remember that at all. I
She
don't
used to
remember.
send it up.
I told you
she
I
wasn't
remember a
one
lot
of
of
the
things.
stores.
No, we were on Oxford.
Yeah, but you
They
remember
lived
things.
in
Yeah, that's
South
true.
of the Third and Pine.
Okay.
Um,
I was
do
really,
believe
as
that
young as I was, I
probably
remember
sick,
how
but he couldn't
dreadful.
afford to lie down. He always used to say he used to take a little glass of whiskey every morning. He did believe that that really kept.
He always felt that that kept him from